You mentioned playing in front of 15, 20,000 people. What's that like?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not a person that kind of gets nervous in front of big crowds.
Because you're handsome as fuck.
It's like when you're coming across people that are running at you that are 20, 30 kilograms heavier than you, and you're 17, there's a part of you that sits back and is like...
Club going bankrupt and not being there, and you being at the club signing the contract. How did you deal with that whole situation?
Yeah, that's tough. Knew potentially it was coming, but didn't actually think it was going to happen. There was like a month where we didn't get paid, and then the following month it got paid late, and then the following month after that, no one got paid. It was a pretty tough time because we're so close as a group. We went from like having a real excitement about the season to the season ending to everyone's going their separate ways. Some people have jobs, some people don't. That's it, done. You have to find your purpose in life, and at the time, my purpose was probably, I want to get the best contract, I want to have the most money, I want to drive the nice cars, I want to have the nice things. And then you look back, and I look back now, and I think, because it can make you feel like you're Superman, but it could also make you feel like you're shit. And respect the fact that once upon a time you were in their shoes, and you wouldn't have liked that either, so why do you think now it's okay to do it? And that's why I hate it when players and coaches that have been in the game, that are now pundits, decide to...
As a athlete or as a pair of podcasters, we know what we signed up for when we got into the game. To not expect it, I think is a bit naive as well.
Yo guys, welcome back to the Gooms Podcast, and today we sat down with a good friend of ours, Ollie Lawrence. We spoke about dealing with the pressures of representing his club and country at the highest level, his previous club going into administration, and we got to take a deep dive into the life of a professional athlete. Some may say that this is the realest version of Ollie Lawrence ever seen. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button and enjoy the episode.
Okay, come on, professionalism. You ready?
When you are, bro.
When did you know you wanted to be a rugby player? Hey, I beg you bring it in, please, bro.
Yeah, let's come.
Don't look at me up.
Sort your shit out, bro.
This never happens.
I can't actually look at you now because I'll just start creasing.
When did you know that you wanted to be a rugby player?
I was probably, I reckon 15, 16 is probably when I started realising that this is like something I actually love doing, and like kind of wanted to maybe have a look at what this would look like professionally. I don't really think I knew I was going to go pro at that age, but that's when I kind of realised I was a bit better than other players like around me and my team, and I definitely knew that like this is what I wanted to do going forward, and then that was basically it.
15, 16 is old though, right? I'm thinking like football terms. 15, 16, if you haven't already got a pro, then more often you're not really going to make it. Yeah,
I think because like growing up, like I played so many different sports, I couldn't really like hang my hat on one. Like I grew up playing a bit of footy, a bit of cricket, a bit of rugby, and I was doing them all alongside each other. And I think it was probably 15, 16 where I was kind of like, right, I'm probably the best out of all three of the sports at rugby at this time. So let's just give it a go. And I probably started playing when I was like 6 or 7. Probably started playing like tag rugby then, and then footy, obviously the same. Cricket probably a bit later, maybe like 7 or 8. But yeah, no, that was probably the age where I was like, right, I love doing this. This is something I want to take a bit more seriously.
Did you come up like through the ranks anywhere, or were you at Worcester the whole time?
Professionally, yeah. I started off at Moseley in Birmingham, so I played club rugby there. My dad played there when he was younger as well, and then I moved to Old Halzonians in Halzoen at like 15, and then when I was 16, that was the last time I was able to play club rugby, because you can't. It's a bit similar to like with football. You can't like be in an academy and be able to play like at your local club. 16, I played for like the Worcester Warriors. Like it was basically at Six Ways. I played at the Worcester club basically, and I played there for a year. And then I went to sixth form, started playing rugby a bit more seriously, got a scholarship to Bromsgrove, and then that's when I wasn't allowed to play club rugby anymore. And that's kind of the journey I had, really, going through club rugby, and then we go through like county, Midlands, and then I got into the Worcester Academy when I was like 15, I think, and then stayed with them ever since, yeah.
Do you wonder, so growing up, you were playing for Blues and Villa, right?
Yeah.
you wonder what life would have been like if you stuck at football?
You'd have had a lot more zeros in the bank.
Exactly. I'd have a lot more cheddar, I'll tell you that for free. I guess I look back at it and think, what if? But I don't think I could have gone through what I went through later on, probably in my like teenage years, like 16, 17, at the age of like 9, 10, which I think probably is when it's pushed on you a bit more with football. Mm-hmm. I didn't love the environment when I was younger playing footy. I enjoyed playing it, but I didn't like how serious it was. I just wanted to have fun with it. So I think for me, with footy, I think you definitely have to get into it a bit younger.
That's why when you said 15, 16 to me, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know players that have like went to uni and then got into professional rugby. Like I think that's the best thing about it is like you can come through at any point. You don't necessarily have to be attached to an academy to be able to make it.
I remember at school, like when I was like 15, 16, that's when everybody was kind of getting picked for the Worcester Academy.
Yeah.
Like back then, like it's late, isn't it?
Yeah, that's usually the age. I think late 40 and early 15 is usually when that academy starts picking up. I think that's the same now as well. Maybe that's due to the fact like the physical nature of the game.
I was just about to say.
Probably when it comes into it a bit more, as you're a bit more growing. It's funny to think when people say, "Oh, I used to play football in the academy." Like I was like good at football, but I wasn't like sick enough to be the next like Jude Bellingham. Do you know what I mean? Like that was never going to happen for me. Like especially as well, you grow up, your body changes, and my body grew up and probably developed to suit rugby a lot more than it did football.
Do you love it?
Yeah, I do love it. There's times when I've questioned that, like when you get injured, when you don't get selected for certain things. Probably the length of a season as well. There's probably times in it where you're kind of like, do you actually love doing this? But I guess if I looked at it from a whole perspective, everything that's happened through my early years up until now, I'd probably say like, yeah, I do love playing the game. I've loved it since I was like 15, 16, and until the day I don't love the sport, I'll continue doing it as well.
I was going to say, I think a lot of, because I've spoken to other athletes, specifically footballers, but they're like, it feels like work, but when you look at it from an outsider's perspective and put yourself into the shoes of somebody else, yeah, you get to the training ground for 9, 10 and you're there for 3, 4 hours, and then your kind of day's done. And then you're kind of looking forward to a game and you're in prep. A lot of people, that's like a half day of work, especially if you're doing something as well that you love. So I feel like when you're in it, it's very easy to think, oh, do I not? But imagine if you weren't in it, what that kind of would look like. You'd die for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing, really. I think if you look at it from an outside perspective, I think people sometimes be like, well, how can you not love it? How can you not turn up every day and want to do the thing that you love doing? But I think it's having that balance of being able to control the emotions and also the realization that we train to like fatigue ourselves. Like running up and down a field when we're in pre-season isn't fun. Like you're preparing to that first game of the season when you can run out in front of 15, 20,000 people, or have many people in the autumns, 80,000 people in England at Twickenham. That's what you train for. So like you're training for something, for a purpose. And I think there's going to be shit days like there is. Yeah. But it's realizing that those days are few and far between. And if you look at it from a bigger picture point of view, like you just said, like if you were taken out of those shoes, you'd look back and be like, all I want is that right now. Like I'd do anything for that. So I think you have to be grateful for the fact that you're in that lucky position to be a professional athlete, because there's so many kids that probably wanted to do it growing up and haven't been able to do it.
You mentioned playing in front of 15, 20,000 people. What's that like?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not a person that kind of gets nervous in front of big crowds.
Because you're handsome as fuck.
Particularly when I'm like actually playing rugby, I don't get nervous. It's like I'd get more nervous if I did a public speech in front of 15, 20,000 people. Don't even know if I could do that in front of like 100 people. Like that would, for me, I'd be so much more nervous than if I was to step out in front of 80,000 people.
But it's not your craft though.
Exactly, and it's not something I'm used to, and I think that's probably plays a massive factor in it. But yeah, when I go and run out of the rec, which is Bath's ground, it's pretty special to run out there because the fans are insane. Like they're so good. They're such like loyal supporters of the club through all like the bad times that they've had and not performing as well as they should have done. They've always stuck by them. So especially the season just gone, obviously we made the final. That whole build up throughout that whole season, just like it literally crescendoed. It just went like that, and then obviously we got to the the point of being at the final. And although we didn't win the final, it was still pretty cool to see the amount of blue, black, and white shirts in the stadium of an 80,000 capacity. So yeah, it's pretty special. It's pretty cool, and I think that's something you can't take for granted, because when do you get the opportunity to be stood in a field with 20,000 people surrounding you?
Do you feel it? Because I mean, not to the extent of you, but I've had like finals and stuff at a semi-pro level where you play in front of like 200-300 people. Yeah. But when you're actually playing, you kind of just block everything out and play. From my perspective,
yeah.
So obviously numbers make a difference, noise makes a difference. But do you even really like realize? Obviously, when you come in onto the field and out of the field, but in game, you're in game mode, right?
Yeah.
Do you really like? Do you feel it or do you not?
You definitely do feel it at times. I think the biggest time that I like probably feel it the most is during the warm up. So like, obviously you go on the field and there's people are starting to come into the stadium. It's almost pretty full. That's when you kind of get a feel of what the game's gonna be like and what the crowd is like and the atmosphere. And then when you like you just said, when you go on the field, you're so locked in. Like a lot of the time, it's only when there's a big stoppage play. Like say for example, we score a try or something, when you can really hear the crowd and you can look around and you can see it all and properly take that in.
Feel it.
But you never know like when that's going to be in a game. Could be in the first minute. The first try could be in the 79th minute. Like you never know. So yeah, it is difficult to like embrace. Like I guess the best word to say is it's difficult to embrace it when you're trying to be so focused on what the job at hand is. You have to kind of use it to motivate you and push you to get the result you want to get and perform the way you want to perform. But it could also be a hindrance because it can take you and distract you away from the main goal, which obviously is to win our games of rugby and to perform well.
Yeah.
So again, it's like having a balance of being able to embrace it, but also lock in at the same time.
When did you break through? Into Worcester.
Oh, into Worcester. What, professionally, or when did I break through in terms of...
Well, you said you signed 15, 16, right?
Yeah, so 15, 16 is probably the age where I got recognition from a larger group of people, coaches, players, from an outside perspective, that probably I realised that I was pushing to be a better player and actually I could take rugby seriously. I didn't have it nailed on, but I definitely knew that I had like some advantages over other people and other players, and whether that's from natural ability, whether that's from working hard through my early teens, that's probably when I realised. And then I got picked up from Worcester and signed an academy contract when I was 17. So just before I went into my last year of sixth form. And then I played a few games for Worcester, the first team in the A-League, which is like kind of, they don't really have an equivalent in football for me to explain to you. But it's kind of like...
Wait, were you still in college?
Yeah, so I was still in school. So my first game for Worcester, like at men's level, I was 17, yeah.
What was that like at college?
Yeah, that was mad, because I was just like, oh, these people are men. Like, I'm still a teenager, they're men. Like, when I always thought to myself, oh, it's fine, like, I'll just back it, like, my ability's fine. But it's like when you're coming across people that are running at you that are 20, 30 kilograms heavier than you, and you're 17, there's a part of you that sits back and is like, where's this come from? So, like, I'm probably lucky that I was a back. Like, if I was a forward, like, that would be a completely different story. But as a back, like, even then, I was still pretty took back, and especially because there was one guy who went to my school, went to Old Swinford, and when I was in year 7, he was in year 13. He went on to play for Worcester and, like, carved up for them for years. And I made my debut for Worcester, and he came off, so, like, we swapped over, so I was, like, his substitute. So that was a pretty surreal moment, because I was like 7 years, like I looked up to him at school and he was like such like a big name at the school. So to go from that and then make my debut and come off for him, and then it kind of, like you said, was a full circle moment. And yeah, I just threw myself into it. I actually managed to score my debut. Luckily, it was a terrible try. It was never one I need to look back on. But yeah, no, that was pretty cool. And yeah, like these small like little things like that, like it kind of puts in perspective of like how far I've come as a person, as a player.
Yeah.
Like I never thought at year 7 that I'd be substituting myself for a guy that at the time was like the best thing in school rugby, and then went on to carve up for Worcester for many years. So yeah, it's a pinch me moment for sure.
On the topic of Worcester, with everything, the financial crisis was there, obviously, the club going bankrupt and not being there, and you being at the club signing the contract. How did you deal with that whole situation?
Yeah, that's tough. That one was a really sticky subject, because I remember when it it came off the back of COVID, really. So after COVID hit, the club approached like the players and was like, well, for this club to stay alive, we haven't got games, so we're going to have to cut like the whole squad and take like a 10-15% pay cut for a period, and then you'd get a certain percentage back. And then going through that, during that period, I actually re-signed at Worcester. And then me re-signing, I was like I kind of feel bad about this. Like, I'm re-signing for a senior contract when all these players are taking pay cuts. Like, it shouldn't have worked like that, but it was just the way it was. And I was fortunate enough to be in that position. And then going forward another year to when obviously we went into administration, there was kind of rumours of it within the team and within the coaches, and you could see the stuff on Twitter and the news, and everyone knew it potentially was coming but didn't actually think it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then, when we found out, it was like probably there was like a month where we didn't get paid. And then the following month, it got paid late. And then the following month after that, no one got paid. And I remember a week or two before we actually went under, so Steve Diamond was our DOR head coach at the time. And he was kind of looking after us and doing as much as he could in terms of putting pressure on the owners to give us as much information so people could prepare themselves. If that meant that they had to find a new club, whether that meant an older player wanted to leave the game completely, they wanted that as much preparation time for that as possible. And then finally it came we played Newcastle on the Saturday, and we found out like the Tuesday, Wednesday, that after that game the club was going to be no more. They were going to go into administration, and until the debt or whatever happened was cleared, there would be no rugby played at Six Ways. So that was quite sad, because obviously I'd been at the club since I was 15, and I was 22 then, as I've been there 7 years. And then to go from that to finding out your club's going to go under, you don't actually have a professional club to go to, was a bit daunting. I hoped I was going to land on my feet, for sure, but you never know. Like, clubs, it's like the start of the season. Most clubs have filled their salary caps, so you can't just I'm going to go to that club.
It came at a really shitty time, didn't it?
Yeah, it came at like a terrible time. And then I was fortunate enough that Dimes kind of spoke to a few clubs on behalf of the squad to see if he could get as many of us pushed out in groups as we could, on loan to start with, hoping that everything would get resolved, we'd come back and carry on playing. So obviously I went off down to Bath, went on loan down there, and then played my first game for them in the back. So I went on loan there the week before. So we weren't allowed to play rugby at Six Ways, but we hadn't gone into official administration. So I went on loan there to go keep playing some rugby. And then the first week I was there, on the Wednesday or Thursday, they officially announced Worcester had been put into administration and no rugby would continue there. We weren't going to be coming back that season. And then Bath were like, right, okay, so you're not on loan here anymore. We need to offer you a contract. So they put a contract in front of me. I spoke to my agent, spoke to my family, kind of weighed up the pros and cons of it all. But after being at a club and being in that situation where I didn't know that my money was going to be guaranteed every month, I didn't know if I was doing what I love doing every month, I was like, it's a no-brainer really. So that one didn't take too long to kind of decide. And then, here I am. I'm into the last year of my contract now. And I've loved it so far. It's been pretty cool.
You were one of the lucky ones though, right?
Yeah.
Because there was, from what I know Billy, he didn't really have a club for a long time, and now he's gone overseas, right?
Yeah. So like him, there's a few boys that just didn't have anything for ages, couldn't get anything, couldn't get any loan gigs. And also the tough decision was that they didn't want to take a gig in a lower division, because then it's even harder to get back up. Yeah. So he waited out, and then he ended up getting a gig abroad in France at Toulouse, which is pretty good for him. Really good move for him. And then now he's still in France, and I think a lot of boys either went abroad or managed to find clubs within the Premiership. And the majority of them eventually did. It did take time for everyone to find their place. And there was a handful of people that just stopped, retired, or decided that they're going to look at other avenues in their lives. So it was a pretty tough time, because we were so close as a group. We went from having a real excitement about the season to the season ending to everyone's going their separate ways. Some people have jobs, some people don't. That's it, done. And it was literally in the space of 2 weeks that all happened. And I was bopping back and forth from Worcester to Bath to see everyone, and those conversations were never easy. Like, how's it going? They're like, oh yeah, it's great. Like, I'm loving Bath, and they're like, oh well. I was like, have you got anything yet? Nah. Like, that's really tough to take, and I think that's what kind of was a massive motivating factor for me in my first season at Bath, was to play for those boys that didn't have anything.
Love that.
Make them proud, because if I could do that, that would make me feel better about the whole situation, and hopefully that would give them some hope that something will come for them. So yeah, that was definitely a tough period, but a massive learning curve for me.
Through that whole situation, how did you deal with it personally?
I'd say, to be honest with you, I kind of, if anything, tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend it wasn't happening. So when everything at first happened, I think the biggest thing for me was, right, I'm at Bath now, I've moved to Bath on loan. I need to just focus on Bath. Like, if I keep holding on to what's gone, I'm never going to be able to move forward. And I think throughout that whole season, I was still holding on to Worcester. I was still living here for at least 2-3 months after I'd moved clubs. And then it got to the point where I was like, right, like, I was coming back for weekends. I was just like, it's unhealthy, because I couldn't move forward with it. And then there probably came a point where I probably drew a line in the sand, and I was like, right, I have to prioritise myself now. I have to, because if anyone else was in my shoes, they would do the same thing. And I think realising that, and I think to be fair, speaking to like my partner, my friends close to me, and my family, they all put that in perspective to me, and I just couldn't hear it. I was always being like, oh yeah, but I feel bad. Like, oh yeah, but like, I miss Worcester. And it was like almost like I was feeling sorry for myself, and that was never going to get me anywhere.
It came at a shit time though, bro. Because I remember you just got a new home.
Yeah.
Literally just as it was happening.
Yeah.
And like, you were so excited about it, and then all of this stuff happened, and all of a sudden you're commuting, and it's like, I can't really commute.
Yeah.
They put the full-time contract in front of you, then what am I doing here? Obviously, like you said, you just signed a senior contract.
Yeah.
You were expected to be here for at least another couple of years, and then that was just ripped away from you.
Yeah.
Like, your path that you could see for the next kind of 5 years or whatever it was just taken from you, just like that. And as well, at the time, you're 22?
22, yeah.
Like, it's big boy decisions, like man decisions that you're having to make at a time where you're actually a little bit fragile as well.
Yeah. And I think that definitely aided me in terms of stepping up, like you just said, from going to a boy to a man, and like making those decisions and taking responsibility of them and taking control of my career. And like, although I wouldn't have wanted to have been like, right, you've got to make this decision now. But the fact that decision came along, like you just said, I was at Worcester potentially for another year or two. Like, I loved it there. I couldn't have seen myself leaving. So to all of a sudden be told you don't have the choice, you have to leave, it's kind of like, right, okay, like, that's done with now. Like, I have to reminisce and enjoy the memories I had there. But it's time to create a new path. Like, this is the next chapter. And that's probably the moment that I realised was like, okay, let's get to work. And that's probably why the season probably looked the way it did for me, was because I had so much desperation, I think. I was just desperate to do well. I was desperate to play rugby. And I wanted to be the best version of myself. And hopefully I gave that to my team at Bath, but also kind of gave something back to the boys that I kind of left behind. And hopefully during that whole period, they were proud of me and appreciate the fact that it wasn't easy for anybody. But we all had to go our separate ways.
For context, you won Player of the Season, right?
Yeah, that season I did.
Come on.
Yeah, that season I did. So, I was fortunate enough to win Premiership Player of the Year that season. And that was something I never saw coming, especially after the year that had happened. Like, I'd gone
pretty big deal, bro.
Losing my club to winning the Premiership Player of the Year, and in the space of less than 12 months, I was like, well, yeah, this was crazy, and I didn't really expect it. I was very grateful for it, but yeah, I had no expectation of that happening. But like I just said, I think it all stemmed from being an element of desperation in the way I was playing, the way I was training. And yeah, I can't complain with how things turned out for me after it. I just wish it had happened in a different way.
Let's fast forward a little bit. into like once you've actually transitioned into Bath? Obviously, at the age of 22, you're moving to a brand new city on your own, right? You didn't move with any family. You're in a new environment with new players, a new squad. You've got to make an impact. You've got to come in and kind of show them that I'm not the guy that they just got because I was on sale.
Yeah.
I'm here to actually fucking be a part of the team and help.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was not as bad as it could have been because I knew certain players within the team. So I had a few mates that had been at Bath for a few years, and also a few players from Worcester ended up coming. So like Ted Hill,
Okay.
he came.
So you weren't sold, like you weren't on your own.
Yeah, it wasn't just me.
Right.
But still, the fact I had to move to a new club and just be told, right, you've gone from wearing this kit, next week you're wearing this kit and you're playing for this team. That whole thing, like, just it blew my mind that things could change that quickly. I didn't probably take that all in until the end of the season, when the whole season was done with. I really took all that, the whole experience of it all in, and like I said, drew that line in the sand and was like, right, this has happened. Let's try and move on from it. You've got an opportunity now to do what you love doing at a new place with a fresh start. Like, that's all people want is sometimes is you've got an opportunity, like, take it. And it was there for the taking, and like you just said then, that whole year and season was off the back of me just taking that opportunity to go and play for a new club. And it was tough because you have these relationships with players at your club, and then you have to try and start that all over again. It's like making new friends. When you go from primary school to secondary school, you're there shitting yourself, but then when you get there, like after a day, you're there and you're calling your boy in the playground, like all sorts of names, playing footy with him, whacking each other in the cage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff it kind of correlates to professional rugby as well. Moving to a club, everyone's so like very welcoming of you. No one was like a dick or was like, oh, he's coming now, like he's taking my position. Like the player that was in my position was an England international, played 50 times, British and Irish Lion, like someone I grew up respected and looked up to. And I had to go in and try and make my way into this team. And that was tough because he was a good friend of mine. Someone that I knew of became actually a really good friend. And that was always difficult to manage, that transition, to fighting for a jersey. But to be fair, I can't credit enough to the people at that club, from the owner to the coaches. Like, them giving me that opportunity they didn't have to do it. They didn't have to put the contracts they did in front of me. They gambled on me. And hopefully, like, I've paid a bit off towards them, and I'll hopefully continue doing that for as many years as I can.
What's your favourite thing about rugby?
My favourite thing about rugby? That's a good question. It's the games. Like, it has to be. Like, for me, I like training. I like going to the gym. I like being around all the boys every day. But, like, I love
camaraderie,
doing it for the 80 minutes on a Saturday. I don't know if you'll find too many people that will say something different in terms of that. It's like a performance, isn't it? Like, you have a rehearsal all week and then eventually you get that performance, and that's what you want to do it for. And those 80 minutes in front of all those fans and never knowing what's going to happen next, all the emotion that there is with it in terms of the excitement of winning games, obviously how you feel when it's not going your way, and then obviously the times when you suffer defeat as well, is you go through all these whirlwind emotions. And I think that is what I live for, is those 80 minutes, because that's when I can, in simple words, that's when I can perform and showcase my talents to not just the people at the stadium, but the people that are watching on TV, on BT, or around the world in different countries. Like, that's what I do it for. And I think an element of it as I've grown up is it's also you want to inspire the next generation. Like, there's kids there after games that will be screaming your name, wearing your jerseys, and you see that, and it's probably humbling, because you're like, these are like 7-8-year-olds that don't really know me. They just see me for an 80-minute performance on a Saturday. So I have a responsibility to make sure that I perform for these people. They're paying their good money to be there. And these parents are bringing along their kids, and if you want to create change in rugby and develop the next generation, then you have to inspire these kids to be like you and to get into the game. So I think definitely as I've come into probably 23, 24, I've definitely felt that responsibility a bit more, that you do have a responsibility to inspire the next generation, whether you like it or not. You have to. You're in the limelight. You're in the professional game, and if you want the game to grow, that's that's part of the challenge.
Does that pressure affect you?
No.
Knowing that people have paid their hard money to come, or maybe you've lost, or
Nah.
there's people watching, you just, nah.
I love it.
You're locked in.
Yeah, I love it.
Love that.
Like, the pressure of it all is just, it adds it. It's like fuel to the fire. Like, you tell me there's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 people watching a game. Like, I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, I got 40,000 people watching me. I've got 40,000 people watching my team. Like, that excites me. When it comes to pressure, like, I'd like to say like I ignore it, but I don't ignore it. I think I just trying to embrace it. And sometimes you get it wrong. Like, it's the same with anything. Like, you can't be perfect. No one can be perfect. But being able to embrace everything that comes with you being on that field and the responsibility that there is, that you have for yourself, for your team, for your family, like, for me, that's not pressure. Like, that's not pressure.
Yeah.
Like, that it just isn't for me. Like, there's people suffering in this world and they have pressure to actually, like, you know, bring food to the table, look after their families. Like, that's pressure. That's like actually real shit. Like, I don't live with that, and like, I'm fortunate for that, and I'll always be grateful for the life that I have. But it's not pressure, it's a responsibility to perform to the standard that you know that you can week in, week out. And with the mindset to inspire the next generation. And for me, that isn't pressure, that's an opportunity.
Come on.
What's your why?
To be the best looking light skin in the Premiership.
Light skin.
That's a tough one, you know, because I've asked myself this myself a few times.
Can't answer it.
And it's changed. Like, I think
It should change.
I was going to say that's normal.
I think it has to, because the goalposts always change. So when I was younger, so like I said earlier, my dad played rugby and stuff. And
was he a professional as well?
He didn't go professional. It wasn't professional in the era that he played, but he played to the highest level that could have done before going professional. And like, I think he went professional in 1999, so before I was even born. So when he was younger, he was playing at a high level.
Wait, 1 minute. Rugby didn't actually be a professional sport until 1999?
Yeah, 25 years.
It's crazy. No?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's mad. So I guess growing up, the whole reason was I wanted to play for England. Like, anyone that plays rugby, like, they've got majority of their goals and dreams are to play for their country. I was fortunate enough to do that at 21, so I made my debut for England. No, I was away, so I played in Italy for my debut. It was during COVID, so I never got the fans for my debut, which is the one thing I always look back on. I'm like, I wish I could have had some fans there. Like, it just would have been really cool to have had your family in the stands. Like, my family couldn't even be there for my debut. They had to watch on the TV, which I know my dad would have been screaming and shouting at the TV. Like, the whole time, I was only on the field for 16 minutes, but I know for the 16 minutes, he would have been screaming and shouting at the TV. But like, that period, my why was always my family. I wanted to make them proud, and that, for me, getting to play for England was the biggest thing I could do for them. Like, for the whole family, I thought that was the biggest thing I could do to make them proud. And then from then on, like, when that happened, I kind of was sat back and was like, okay, so my why was to play for England. Okay, I've done that now, so what's next? And then I looked back and I was like, right, so I want to be the best player I can be. And that meant I wanted to be one of the best players in the world, because if I was going to play international rugby, I wanted to play international rugby for as many times as I can and push to be one of the best centres in the world. So then that changed, and I was like, okay, now I've got to come back to Worcester after making my debut. I'm going to have to play week in, week out, unbelievably, in the Premiership, and then keep playing international rugby. Fortunately, I had that opportunity for a year, and then I had a few injuries. And then I had basically almost a broken year out of rugby. I played about 6 games in 1 year, just through injuries and coming back too soon, injury. Couldn't get it right, injury.
Is that the year where I'd see you 3 times a week for wings?
Basically. That was the year. But yeah, no, like, my why now is I want to create a stable base for myself and for my family, so that when I finish and all said and done, I have something to look back on, and not just look back at memories and be like, okay, when I have kids, your dad played for England. Okay, cool. Your dad was a British and Irish Lion. Okay, that's something I aspire to be, but I'm not there yet. Your dad went to a World Cup. Okay, cool. Like, all this stuff they're not going to have seen. So I want to be able to give them the opportunity and provide for them the opportunity so they can go into this world with as many opportunities as they can possible. And whether that's financially, whether that's being the right type of person, I think being a rugby player has changed my personality completely and definitely made me more well-rounded. So I think growing up, I'm an only child, so a lot of how I was growing up is, I probably could look back at it and say I was probably quite selfish. I focused on what I wanted. Probably pushed my parents to the edge sometimes with how I was, but everything was just about probably me. I want to do this, I want to do that. And there's a part of it that probably helped me get to where I did so soon. But then there was also a part of me where I was like, right, you can't stay like this forever. If you want to be a good partner and have a family, you can't be selfish. If you want to be a good teammate, you can't be selfish. Like, you have to be able to sacrifice that stuff. And I think growing up and the way I've probably matured over the last 2-3 years is definitely down to the fact that I've realised I probably got things a bit wrong when I was 16, 17, 18. I got away with it when I was 19, 20. And then the year I got injured at 21, it kind of all started to unravel.
And you have that alone time when there's not really too much going on. You've got a lot of time to think.
Exactly. And you look at it and it's a bit like what you just said about my why. Like, well, how can, if your why is to play professional rugby and play for your country and you're out injured, well, how are you going to do this?
Yeah.
You can't. You don't get that feeling, that like
of purpose.
Yeah. And having that purpose it's the sole thing of everything. You have to find your purpose in life. And at the time, my purpose was probably, I want to get the best contract. I want to have the most money. I want to drive the nice cars. I want to have the nice things. And then you look back, and I look back now, and I think, like, I'll just walk into my house and I'll see things, and I'll be like, well, when did I get that? I was like, probably when I was like 20, 21, younger, like, just spent my money. And
like what?
Like, just, okay, clothes. Like, I look back now in my wardrobe and I think, why the hell did I spend that money on clothes? Why did I buy those shoes? Why did I buy this? Why did I buy that? I'm like, none of that made me happy.
Are you not happy that you did it at 21 though?
I am, because, like, say for example, I did that now, I'd probably have even more money to have the opportunity to do these things with, and it's probably at greater cost to myself. Mm-hmm. So the fact I was fortunate enough to come through sooner, I could learn those lessons that I needed to learn sooner. And I'm grateful for that, because if I hadn't have learned that, like, I could have gone in a completely different direction, and I could have gone my whole career spending all my money, and then you come to the end of it and you've got nothing left. So I think that was a real learning curve for me, was finding my purpose in life and then translating that into what I do for work. And now, like, I think I'm fortunate enough to say that I hopefully have built characteristics upon myself, and the people around me can see that and see the change. And hopefully I changed for a better person and didn't just turn into a bellend.
Just a little bit.
You said that you want to be one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
What do you think it takes to be one of the best players in the world?
Dedication. Like, that's one of the biggest things, is dedication. You have to be dedicated every day of your life to get better. You can't really accept just being there. In my early years, I definitely trained and played. I wouldn't say played. I definitely trained sometimes and was pretty half-assed with it. I just got by because I could. And then...
This podcast is shot, edited, and brought to you guys by our marketing agency, GMS Creative.
Since GMS came in and took over our socials, our Instagram and social media has just blown up.
The guys are really good. They really get my vision. We've worked together for over a few years now.
One of the best things about working with GMS Creative is the fact that I've got so much time back. They allow me to do what I do best. They manage the social media and advertising, and I can work on fulfilling orders and creating great products that our customers love.
If you're interested in finding out how me, H, and our team can help propel you and your online presence, click the link in our description to book a free call-in today. Oh, press that subscribe button. Peace.
Everything kind of changed, and I carried on probably being that way. And then I remember my first England head coach was Eddie Jones, and he probably spotted it a bit from an outside perspective. Well, not an outside perspective, but he was probably the first person to see probably some of the traits in me that I look back on now that I didn't like. Was probably accepting low standards and not training to be the best, just training for the sake of training. And everyone does it. Like, some people go to the gyms because they want to go to the gym, like to say they've been to the gym, and they might just go and run on a treadmill for 20 minutes, and that's them getting fitter. Like, it's all, you have to compare it to
You can train to train, or you can train to win.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing we actually speak about in our England rugby thing. Like, Steve always touches on it. You can train to train to compete, train to win. And our big focus is obviously on training to win. And it's right. Like, if you're not training to win and training to be better, then you're never going to move anywhere. You're just going to stay in the same place.
How do you define dedication?
I think you touched on it earlier.
Yeah, I think
Those days when you have the bad days and you still have to...
I think going through the bad times with the injury, that's what really opened up my eyes to everything, and the fact that it can be, like, not taken away from you, but you can't actually do what you love doing because you're injured. And then I got re-injured again, and then probably me getting re-injured was off the back of me not taking my rehab seriously in the first place, or allowing myself to be pushed to a level that I probably wasn't ready for. And that's, like, all about being honest and having trust in the people around you, because if you've got the trust in people around you, you can be honest and be like, oh, right, that didn't feel great today. Whereas all in my head was like, I've got to get back on the field. So I was like, I'm fine, I'm all good. Like, I can do the next bit, I can run faster, I can change direction, I can do this. And I probably pushed myself thinking, oh, my body's, I'm 21, it'll just be sweet, all good. Like, I had a hamstring, I tore my hamstring 5 times in one season.
Fucking hell.
Like, 3 on one side, 2 on the other. And I'd say a good 60, 70% of it was the fact I just kept pushing myself to get back fit so I could go and do what I love doing and go and play in the big games and play for my country. But I ended up just hindering myself.
You a big game player?
God, you'd have to ask other people on that opinion. Like, I think, like I just said to you then, like, when it comes to big games, it's heightened expectations, heightened pressure. And for me, that's what I embrace. I don't fear. So in that regard, you probably could be like, right, yeah, he is a big game player because he doesn't feel the pressure of the big games, but you also have to perform in those big games. And until I've performed in 3-4 Premiership finals or countless international games, I think until that happens, I don't think I can be classed as a big game player. I think you have to prove yourself over and over again to be able to hold that over your own head and say out loud and say, yeah.
That was a very media-trained
humble
answer.
Response.
That was.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was. But to yourself, though, do you like to think of yourself as a big game player?
I think everybody
to myself,
would like to think that.
Because, like, to myself, like, I when I think about the way I'm going to play and the capabilities of myself, I don't look at it and be like,
Serious?
you're throwing me off now doing that.
Sorry.
No, but my own capabilities, I don't really know where I can get to. I'm only 24 now, and I kind of think to myself, like, how much better can I get? And if I look at myself and what I do day to day in my career and how I train and how I play, I think there's definitely margins for me to get even better than I am right now, like to a whole nother level. And that's what excites me, is that I can get to that point. It's just going to take time to get there, and it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice. And there's times where they'll probably be like, I'll have to sacrifice seeing my family, I'll have to sacrifice seeing my friends, doing things I want to do, because my sole goal is to have targets within my career, especially over the next few years. There's big things happening in rugby that I want to be a part of, and to be a part of them, I need to get better as a player.
You have to perform.
I need to perform internationally. I need to perform week in, week out at my club, and that responsibility is on me. And if it comes to not being selected in certain teams or not making certain squads, then I'll look back on myself and I'll question why I didn't get there and what I didn't do. And I don't want to look back and think, what if? That's my biggest thing, is I want no regrets in my career. So I don't want to look back and be like, what if? I've had my learnings now from when I was young. It's time to look forward now and to make sure that I can learn quicker than I did when I was younger.
What's the normal time for a rugby player to, like, retire?
Depends really, like a position. So
Yeah.
backs and forwards tend to retire at different times. Also the level you want to play at. So if you want to play in France, or if you want to play in England, or if you want to play in the Championship, Japan, like wherever, it depends on where you want to play, but I'd say roughly anywhere between 33, 34. Some players are going until 36, 38. Like you've done a good career if you get to 38. You've looked after your body well, and fair play to you. That's a good stint. But I think the biggest thing for me is I want to be able to bow out on my own terms. I don't want to. Yeah, like I don't want to play in England for a certain amount of years, retire internationally, go and play in France, and then just be.
You don't want to take the Saudi deal.
No, like I ain't going to Saudi anytime soon. I don't know, you know. Money talks, bro. Money talks. Nah. But no, on a real one, like I wanna finish when I'm still in performing well. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hang on and potentially block other people coming through because I think I can play. Like if I can't play at the standard that I know I can, that's not enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
If I can't beat defenders, if I can't run through people the same way I could when I was 23, 24 or 26, 27, 28. Like for me, I'm like, I need to look at the other avenues and see what's next for me. But I definitely want to experience different places. Like I'd love to play in France at some point. I'd love to maybe go to Japan. And those are hopefully opportunities that will open up for me. But I think my focus right now is to play for England and really cement myself as an international player, and that's something that I've been trying over the last few years, and I've definitely had more opportunity since Steve, our Borthwick, our new coach that came in a couple of years ago. Since he's been in charge, I've definitely had more opportunity to do so, and hopefully I can continue stepping up and getting better as a player and pushing to compete with the best players in the world.
As an athlete, you have like a small period of your life really where you can play, right? So you're 24 now. Mm-hmm. You say people normally start to bow out around 34. So let's just say, all being well, you get another 10 years in the game. Are you actively already thinking about what things you're putting in place to make sure that when you come out of the game, because you previously touched on making sure that you can make opportunities for your family and be set and stable, are you already thinking about those things away from the game? Or are you like solely focused right now in getting that next big contract and like you said, like playing for England on a consistent basis and stuff like that?
So for me personally, like I have people around me that look after that for me so that my sole attention can be rugby.
Right.
But yeah, since I've been probably 21, 22, I've had financial advisors and people that I've tried and failed with, and you have to test the waters with different people. I found a really good guy now who looks after a lot of my financial stuff. And he basically just invests money that I'm happy to let him invest with. And I keep a chunk of money that I need each month to look after myself, look after my family, and look after anything I need if in case anything goes wrong. And the rest of it is invested and thinking long term, like when I retire, how much money can I invest? So that means when I've got this pot at the end, it's looking pretty sweet, you know? And that's the biggest thing is...
No, it's made me happy that you said that.
Like 18 to 21, 22, I lived. Like, I was living, bro. Like, I actually had fun, and like, probably those years of my life, like, if I met someone now who would have only seen me back then, they'd be like, oh, he loves buying all the nice stuff. He's got this, and I'd be like, yeah, I did then.
Even in the time frame that I've not seen you since the move, I can sense a massive change in your aura, in like maturity.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad that you can see that, because like I said, we haven't seen each other for a while now. So the fact you've seen that is like, that means a lot to me, because it's not something that I seek validation for, but to hear it is always humbling. What about that you've changed? Do you know what I mean?
You see anything that's the same other way around? Or?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for you to kind of
but yeah, no, yeah, those early years, like 18 to 21, like when I grew up, like I didn't grow up in a 6-7 bed house or with loads of spare money, driving nice cars. Like that wasn't how I grew up as a kid with my family. Like we got by, we did our thing. I got lucky and had opportunities to get scholarships to go to schools, and I'm so grateful for what my family did for me and sacrificed for me to have the opportunities that I did by sending me to Old Swinford and then sending me to Bromsgrove. I'll always be grateful for that. But the biggest reason I think going forward in life, and like you just touched on about having it at the end, is you never want to have the life you had growing up. As much as I loved it, I don't want that for my kids. I want to do even better. Mm-hmm. So that means then hopefully when they grow up, they can do even better for their kids, and then you create this generation where...
It's evolution, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
our sole purpose as humans. Well, 100%. As a being.
100%. And yeah, that's where I am now. I made many mistakes when I was younger, and a lot of my friends and people close to me will be able to vouch for that. And there's probably some funny stories in there along the way. But hopefully, well, not hopefully, I think now I've got to a point where I've realised that you have to grow and develop in your life, and the sooner you do it, the better you'll be in your life.
You have to have a balance as well, though, right?
You do, yeah, of course. Like, balance is key to everything, but there's probably certain characteristics which I didn't think I needed a balance for. I just didn't need them in my life. And there were certain times where I loved like going out. I wouldn't mind eating junk food all the time. Like, I would train, just like I said, train to train. Like, I'd just get by, and I was happy getting by, and that would never have worked out for me in the rest of my career if I carried on like that. And something needed to change for me.
Do you think that was because you didn't really know your capabilities, because you were still kind of young, you didn't really know how far you could go, how far you could take it? Or was it just a bit of like, I've run into a bit of money, I'm a professional athlete, light skin, blue eyes, who wants some? Just go, green eyes. Sorry. But do you know what I mean? Was it just a case of like, oh, I'm him, I'm going to go and like kind of make sure everyone else knows I'm him? Or was it a case of not really knowing where your roof was, or what the potential that you actually had?
There was an element of not knowing my capabilities and where I was going to go to in the game. There's an element of probably a bit of taking it for granted and being like, oh, well, I've done it now. Like, I'm earning this money, professional athlete, do what I love doing. I can do whatever. And then also realization that I didn't grow up with money, so probably I didn't actually know what to do with it. Like, when I was 18, I didn't think about saving money. When I was 19, 20, I probably started to get a better understanding of it, but probably didn't actively reach out and put things in place. And then, yeah, like, in a blink of an eye, that's 3 years gone. 3 of your first professional years where you've earned a considerable amount of money for someone that age. And you've got what to show for it. Like, luckily, I bought my house. So I did have like tangible things where I could be like, oh, I've done this, and like I've got that to show for it. But other than a few other bits, like, for me, I definitely look back in those years and I think I wasted a lot of money, but I don't regret it because I actually had a great time and I needed to learn that to be able to be where I am now. So I don't have regrets. I just wish that I'd have seen forward a bit further.
Everything happens for a reason, bro.
Exactly.
Would you have the mind frame that you have now if you didn't go and...
No way. Like, I wouldn't be where I am now if Worcester hadn't happened. I wouldn't be at Worcester in that situation.
You'd still be at Tiki Bar with me on a Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of these things, like, I wouldn't be here if all this stuff hadn't happened to me. Like, the biggest thing that happened to me was obviously Worcester going under and me moving. But even going through and being, like, in the limelight at a young age, at 18, 19, with an expectation of you're going to be the next this, you're going to be the next that. I'm like, okay, like, at the time I was like, yeah, this is sick. Like, my life's cool. And then I went through that year at 21 when I was just injured, and I was like, well, this is shit. Like, I don't want to live my life like this. I don't enjoy this. This isn't what I signed up for. And then you can look at it one of two ways. You can feel sorry for yourself, or you can get off your ass and start working on it. And eventually I got to the point where I was back fit, started playing for Worcester, and then obviously Worcester went under, and then that chapter closed, another one opened with Bath, and I'd like to think I've managed to rebuild myself again and be a better person, be a better athlete. And yeah, for me, that was the biggest learning for me, was my younger years. And like I said to you, like, I enjoyed them, but I'm glad I did it at a young age. And I'd advise anyone coming through to have a the foresight to look forward and be like, okay, this isn't going to last forever, but have some fun with it. Like, do you know what I mean? Most people that are 18 and 21 are at uni going into debt. If you've got some money and you want to go and spend a bit, go and spend a bit, man. Go and have some fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, have some fun with it. Like you just said, everything happened to a reason, and if you are fortunate enough to be in a position to earn good money, you're allowed to reward yourself. Like, you are. Like, if you don't want to, that's fine. But if you want to, don't feel guilty about it. I'll never have a go at somebody for wanting to get something or spend some money or do something they've always wanted to do. Like, I always wanted to have a Range Rover. So when I had the point that I could have a Range Rover, I got a Range Rover. And now I look back and I think, it was cool to have that, but I didn't need that car at 21.
Yeah.
Like, I need that car at 28 when you've got 2 kids in the back. I don't need it at 21. So it was nice, and I was lucky to have it and have those nice things in life, but it didn't actually mean much when
the irony wore off.
100%. And I think everything does. I think the irony of a lot of things in my life wore off when I realised that everything can be taken away from me. I'm like, well, what do I actually have to show for what I've just done over the last 3-4 years at Worcester? Like, what do I have? Like, the house that I was in, I was like, okay, cool. And I look around, I'm like, okay. And that's probably the biggest thing that ever happened to me and the biggest blessing in disguise.
You mentioned luck as part of your success. How big a part do you think that luck plays in reaching your potential?
I think, I don't think it's luck. I genuinely do think like everything does happen for a reason. And like my breakthrough to Worcester came off the back of a couple of players getting injured in the first team, and I came in and then I started playing, and then I was starting every week, and that happened that way. Similar to my England debut, a couple of people around me in my position got injured, and then I was given the opportunity to play. And if I look at that and I think, was I lucky? I would hate for someone to turn around to me and say, you were lucky, because I'd be like, well, I worked hard for that opportunity. It came off the back of someone getting injured, which I couldn't have helped.
But what if you weren't ready?
Exactly. And that's the thing, like, I might not have been, and I don't actually think I was ready to step into international rugby at the age I did. I think I wanted it so bad, but up here, I don't think I was ready for everything that came with it, like all the
noise,
positive stuff, all the noise, the positive and the negative, and especially the negative stuff. You can ignore it, but it wears down on you, and you don't even have to look for it. Like,
it looks for you.
Your mate can talk to you and say something, and he might be like, why has this person said this? Trying to back you up, but him just saying it to you puts it in your head that it's out there. And that's why I realised I had to like shut off from that. Like, you can't look for things or anything like that, because you're going to find, like, 99% of the time you're going to find something you don't like. And then you've got to realise that these people's opinions, they're just Joe Bloggs just sitting on his ass, sitting on his phone, just tweeting at a game. And you're out there playing it. Like, who would you rather be? Like, who do you actually care about his opinion?
What's the worst thing that you've read?
I've read I'm not an international player many a times. What else have I read?
Chris would beat him a 100-metre race.
Yeah.
I think I wrote that one.
The worst things to read, like, are when people compare you to other players, because you're your own person, and like, I'm my own person. And growing up, I was compared to a person called Manu Tuolangi, and he's someone I grew up watching, like, almost like to the point of idolising and my game, because I wanted to be like Manu. And then I come in, and he was injured at the time, and then everything in the papers is, the next Manu Tuolangi, the next Manu Tuolangi, show signs of Manu Tuolangi. I'm like, I'm Ollie Lawrence. Like, he has earned his stripes from how he plays. Let me earn mine from how I play. And you can take it and be like, that's a compliment, but once or twice is a compliment. When it's your whole 2-3 years of your early career, it's really tough to deal with. And it's hard to battle it away and be like, every time you get asked in the press, you've been compared to, I'm like, okay. And then you have to answer it the same way, and it's just draining, and it's not worth it. But yeah, I don't read stuff about myself online. Like, I try to avoid it at all costs. And like, you are going to get tagged in stuff, and you're going to see comments, and you just have to ignore them, because if you entertain it, some players actually do entertain it and get joy from it. Like, there's a couple of players I know that if they get atted, or they see a comment that's like negative about the team, they'll just reply to them and be like, cheers, mate, appreciate your help. And I'm like, that's their way of dealing with it. I couldn't do that because I would just get caught in this battle of like, I'd be online all night just going to this guy's been late, what's going on? So I just ignore it, and that's the best way for me to deal with it. And I think individually you have to find your own way to block out the noise, and whether that's not having social media in general, like it can be a blessing and it can be the biggest curse ever.
Yeah.
Because it can make you feel like you're Superman, but it can also make you feel like you are shit. And like make you feel like you aren't who you think you are. You have to have so much confidence in yourself and your ability to ignore that. Mm-hmm. That's, like I said, it's something I've had to develop over the last few years because I was thrown into the press and into social media so young. At first I was like, oh, this is cool, like I'll ride the wave, and then it beats down on you and beats down on you, and they're just literally waiting for you to crack, and then eventually you have a game that isn't great and everything comes down on you at once, and then you're literally like, whoa.
It applies to everything though, socials.
Of course.
It can have massive positive effects.
Yeah.
It can help you. In our space, it can help you build a business. It can help you grow. It can help people put people's eyes on you and what you're trying to build.
100%.
But it can also really, really knock you, make you kind of doubt yourself. It's how you kind of take it.
Yeah.
And
I think it's hard as well to pick and choose what to take and who to listen to. Like, if someone that runs, like a Steve Bartlett, if he said to you, oh, this podcast is sick, you'd be like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a compliment for someone that's like smashing it in his field.
Yeah. But if he commented saying, boys, bit shit.
You know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, right, do I have to listen to that because it's coming from a respectful person?
Do we stop tomorrow?
Do you know what I mean?
Like,
whereas if that was like anonymous 8080, you'd be like, don't care.
Yeah.
So like, it's balancing the people that have these comments on you. Like, you have to pick and choose. But like, if this person is saying that you're shit, then okay, like cool, like that's fine. But if someone you say, for example, in the world that you work in, like says they don't think you're performing well, that's hard to ignore because they have an opinion that's probably a bit more valid because they've been in the game. But for me, I still just ignore that because I have to. Like, I actually have to, because if I don't, I will end up thinking that just because they've done certain things in their career, they're not me. They don't know what we do in training. They don't know how we line up, what our moves are, how I need to impact the game. They don't know that. So they're judging my performance based off an outside point of view. And if I was looking at it from their shoes and I was them, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I agree. But then I'd look back and be like, well, okay, well, why am I typing this on social media about someone that's 21 years of age who hasn't really stepped foot in international rugby yet, and you're going to bag him and say, oh, you don't think he's cut out for international rugby? Of course I'm not fucking cut out for international rugby. I'm 21. I've been doing it for 3 years professionally against men. Like, obviously I did it as a kid, but I've done it for 3 years. So for me, I'm like, you don't need to bag people to get views or to get people's attention. Just, if that's your honest opinion, then just be respectful about it. Like, respect the fact that once upon a time you were in their shoes, and you wouldn't have liked that either. So why do you think now it's okay to do it? And that's why I hate it when players and coaches that have been in the game, that are now pundits, decide to write these articles about young players. Let young players grow and be their own person. Like, leave them alone, because you bagging them isn't going to make them a better player. Like, it isn't. So, like, keep your opinion to yourself and then try and create a positive noise around what you're saying to make the team better and encourage them. Bagging us isn't going to make it any different. If anything, it's just going to make me think that you're a bit of a prick.
And as well, when they were playing, Instagram and Twitter weren't what they are today. They never had to deal with those stuff, so they actually don't know the repercussions. I feel like the next generation of athletes that come into punditry, I feel like they're a lot more forgiving. Your Theo Walcotts, your Micah Richards, because they've been in it and they got a glimpse of what it was like to be in the public figure to the level that it is now, how accessible it is through socials.
100%.
They're a little bit more forgiving to, especially the younger dudes coming up.
I think that's key as well. I think, like, with younger players that are coming through, like, give them the opportunity to let them be themselves, let them make mistakes and let them learn. Like, they've got people around them, they've got coaches of their team that can coach them to be better and will tell them how they need to improve, what they need to work on. If they have a shit game, they'll tell them they've had a shit game and they'll push them to be better. But doing it in front of millions of people isn't going to make this kid, this 18, 19, 20-year-old a better player. It's just going to put more pressure and more spotlight on the fact that he didn't play well. Yeah. Like, leave him be, like, encourage him. Like,
how's he going to come out next week as well?
Exactly. And that's the one thing I wish that had happened to me, is that when I was young and all this noise was coming out, whether it's positive or negative, just ignored it. Because you have this positive stuff and you go, like, massive crescendo, and you go like this, and then all of a sudden one person could say something, and instantly, without realising, you could instantly just be like, right, okay, I don't think I'm that good anymore.
So not everyone loves me then?
No.
Yeah.
Exactly, and no one ever is always going to love you. Someone's always going to have an opinion. You could get man of the match in a game and someone could tell you you don't deserve it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Thanks for your opinion. Cheers. Mm-hmm. Hope you got what you wanted from that.
Yeah.
You could have just been like, I thought you played well, but I think this player should have been man of the match. Just a way of wording it. I just think that's key to everything, is your delivery and how you speak. And you guys know about that.
It comes from a type of person as well, though.
Yeah, exactly.
The people that...
They probably don't realise that they're detrimental to the extent that they are being.
Exactly.
Because, like Chris said, like, it's a different...
And lack of intelligence as well.
I think so. But then there's times where I think to myself, I look back, I'm like, well, if you're doing it repetitively for, like, say something you've been in, like, punditry for, like, I don't know, 5-10 years, and you're still doing it, I'm like, have you not learned? Have people not told you that your opinions, like, they do affect people?
After this, just give me a name.
I'm fortunate because, like I said, I try and ignore that and I don't let it affect me like that. But I've seen it affect other people, and that's why it grinds my gears, because I'm like, I know how that's affecting that player, and I'd never say it, and I'm never gonna like name names or anything like that. But
just leave them alone.
Just leave them alone. Like, just encourage them to be better, and eventually they realise that the people around you, the people you trust, and the people that actually have your back, and not the people out there.
I also think, though, as a athlete or as a pair of podcasters, we know what we signed up for when we got into the game. In an ideal world, you play in front of thousands of people every single week. Our podcast reaches millions of people on a monthly basis. You have to expect there's going to be 5-10% of dickheads that are going to say some shit.
100%.
I feel like you have, like, you know what you're signing up for, and you can never really truly kind of, I don't know, prepare yourself for how it's going to feel.
Yeah.
But I also feel like to not expect it, I think is a bit naive as well.
Agreed. I think, especially the way we are in our generation now in society, now social media is, you have to understand that it's going to come at some point. You don't know when it's going to come, but there's always going to be critiques. There's always going to be people that want to just bring you down because you're happy and you're doing well and you're successful. There's always going to be people like that.
Let them talk, man. I love that shit.
Do you know what I mean? It just fuels you. Like, if someone tells me that I'm shit before a game or after a game, I'm like,
come on, then.
All right, cool, let's go. Let's go. Do you know what I mean?
Come on, then.
Like, that just revs me up, and I'm just like, all right, cool, like, sweet. Like, I'm ready to go now. Like, that's fine. Like, and like, even a bit this season with Bath, like, no one really wanted us to get to the final. Like, early on in the season, like, there was people that were out there being like, oh, can Bath make it? And then we ended up making it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, like, that fueled us. You saying that we aren't going to do it, we'll bottle it. Like, I'm like, cool. Like, that actually just fueled me. I was like, it gave me and gave the team, I think, more confidence, being like, let's shut these people up, man. Like, let's go out there and do it. And like, yeah, we didn't win. And that's fine, because we learned from it, and hopefully this season we'll be better for it.
Is that something you actively talk about in the change rooms? Like, oh, we heard this guy say this, and let's go and fucking shut him up. Or is it just the sole purpose, the plan, the tactics, the moves, I mean, I don't know the terminology, because I'm not really I used to play fly half. Is that what it is? Fly half.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
yeah. But like, does like that outside noise, when you said it fuels us, like, is it in the change rooms, like, you know what? Fucking Gary Neville and Roy Keane have said this. Let's go and fucking shut them up this week. Is that something that you guys kind of talk about, or do you try and stay away from it?
We don't really talk about it when it comes to game day ever. Like, at club, like, we've spoken meetings and been like, let's make sure we ignore the external noise. At England, we've done it, and we've kind of taken the piss out of it and just shown it, like shown tweets from people giving their opinions where we haven't had a great game, or we haven't put the performance in that they expect us to perform like. And we've kind of used that to be like, oh, we'll take the piss out of that and have a joke, and it'll come up, and then it makes it seem like it's actually nothing. Is
the difference in pressure significantly more on an international level than it is at club?
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
I can only, again, use a football reference, but the expectation of the England team at every major tournament, and especially on the individuals within the England team, is so much more than Saka playing at the Emirates on an average Saturday in March.
Yeah. I just think when it comes to club rugby, like, everyone loves the club that you play for, but it isn't the be-all and end-all.
Yeah.
Like, there's 100,000, 110,000 people that live in Bath. They want the club to be successful. Like, there's been years where Bath have won one game in the season or 2 games in the season, and they still almost sell out the stadium.
Yeah.
Because they love rugby and they love the team and always have their backs. When you go to international, there's people that are there through corporate, there's people that are there who they've been given tickets that don't really love the game, but they want to be there because it's Twickenham.
Just
England.
there for the event.
And that's what creates the problem. That's what creates the noise, and I think the expectation on everyone that England have to win every game. Of course we want to win every game. Sometimes teams are better. Like, it just happens. Like, you can't beat the Arsenal Invincibles for the whole of your life. It's just not going to happen. Like,
You can't be the Chelsea Invincible.
You need to lose games of rugby to be able to grow. You have to. Like, we lost in the semi-final of the World Cup against South Africa, and I only came on for about 10-15 minutes. But even that 10-15 minutes, the way I felt after the game, all I wanted to do was play them again. That fueled me because I was like, I want to go again. Like, I want this again. And that will fuel me for the next World Cup in 2027.
I actually watched you, by the way.
Did you?
I was playing pool and it was on.
Oh, nice.
I was like, yeah, that's my guy.
But yeah, that stuff, that kind of stuff, like,
Yeah, the scrum off.
Dickhead. I wanted to get into it, but you've mentioned it. I mean, you have represented your country at the highest of levels at the World Cup at the age of 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck was that like for you, bro?
Yeah, it was pretty special. I can't lie, like, when I found out, so I'll take you back to the beginning. So when we first kind of got news that there was like a wider squad for the World Cup, so we found out maybe like back end of May, early June, and we went into camp, and then on day 2, I did my PCL in my knee. So we were doing like training, and then I went to like tackle someone, and I landed on my knee and I did my PCL. So usually for PCL it could be anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. Really, if you need an op, it could be even longer. But we did mine conservatively, so I was going to be out for around 8 weeks. So I was missing the whole of pre-season. So in my head, I'm like, went back to the room after finding out I'd done my PCL. I was like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to be going home then. Because like, why is he going to bank on me when I'm not even available to the second warm-up game, 3 weeks before we fly out to the World Cup in Paris? And then sat down with Steve, and kind of he just said, just focus on your rehab, just do that. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, he's given me the opportunity to get fit, and then we'll see where we are at the end of it. And then they played the first warm-up game against Wales, and then the day later the squad was announced. We were in the hotel, he called us up for meetings, and he told me, he's like, you're coming to the World Cup with us. Like, we're going to take you, like, I back you to do this job. I know you're going to be back fit. You need a couple more weeks, that's fine. The first game wasn't till another 2.5 weeks. And I was like, instantly just emotion. Like, I was like, I remember going back to my room, and I literally I could have cried. I didn't, but I could have cried. And I text my missus, text my family, and I was just like, I'm going to the World Cup. And that was so special to have that moment, and to find that out in that way, to know that I was going to my first World Cup with England. And it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. I think we had 7 games at the World Cup. I came off the bench 6. I started 1. I wish I could have had a bigger impact, because I think I was ready, and I was there, and I think I could have.
Do you think the injury held you back?
Yeah, because if I hadn't had that injury, I would have done that whole pre-season.
You would have gone into the warm-ups
off the back
flying.
of the year I had. I think I could have been knocking at the door a lot more to be starting. And I think the injury held me back, but I think then it also was a blessing, because I was put on the bench and I could have covered more positions. I covered both centres, and then if I had to, I could have gone to the wing, or they could have moved one of the centres that started onto the wing, who's played wing before. So he backed me to be on the bench, and I was in the matchday 23s. But a part of me, the whole way through, was like, when am I going to get this opportunity to start? Like, I know I can do a job here. And my knee wasn't quite right. It was 70%, 80% of there. As the tournament grew, I was getting more confident in it. And then by the end of it, I was probably like, yeah, I'm good. Like, by the last three games, I was like, okay, like I could start now. But it was already too late then. Like, we'd done so well in the tournament as a team, and the centres that started had been so good. Like,
hard to drop them.
Yeah, you can't, like, if you're winning games, like, how do you drop someone? How does he say, okay, I'm going to drop you for Ollie? Like, he was doing the right thing. He was doing the right thing, but it was so hard to take, because I was like, I know I can be playing right now on this big stage, trying to win a World Cup for my country. And then finishing that whole World Cup, I came home and I reflected, and I was like, right, okay, I have to do that again. Like, no matter what, like, I want to be at another World Cup. So
is it every 4 years as well?
Every 4 years. So kind of that's how the cycle went. So that was 2023, and then hopefully in 2027 in Australia, I can be at that World Cup again, and hopefully I can be starting this time and can really make an impact. And yeah, it was amazing. Like I said, such a special moment, but it wasn't quite what I wanted from it. But then that's life.
Who's to say that it didn't happen for a reason?
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like,
the little injury, you weren't really as present throughout the tournament in regards to playing as you kind of wanted to be, and you were one step off. But how much sweeter will it feel when you go into the 27 World Cup? You're fit, you're flying, you're starting. You are like a presence within the team, and you take it that one step further. How much more special is it going to feel when you feel like... I've been there before where I'm slightly injured, I'm not quite right, and we've gone as a team and done something, it's great. Yeah. But you also feel a little bit like, it's great, but I didn't really play my part as much as I wanted to anyway.
Exactly.
It's kind of like bittersweet.
And I think, I think for sure, and I think that's how I felt, is I didn't play my part. And like, of course I did. Like, I trained hard, like I supported the boys that were playing. Mm-hmm. And I was there throughout the whole tournament, but I just felt like I've just spent the last 3-4 months training. Like like we said, we play for the Saturdays. Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest thing with, I think, with international rugby especially. Like, when you're there, you have to buy in and support everyone in that team, whether you're starting, whether you're on the bench, whether you're not even involved. Like, you have to be there as a team, because that's what gets you through the shit times. Like, when there's an injury or the training standards, like, you need both sides of the ball to be on job. And that was the one thing with the World Cup, which was good, is that everyone was just on the job. Like, everyone was there because we wanted to win. That was our whole goal, was to win that World Cup. And we came a step short. But like you just said, going forward, so hopefully in 2027, that's going to be bittersweet, like you just said, to have gone to a World Cup before, not had what I wanted from it, and this is my opportunity building up to go and get it. And hopefully
you'll get it, bro.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it all goes to plan, and I can be fit and healthy and ready to go.
Before we round off, bro, to any young kid aspiring to be a professional athlete, not even just in rugby, what would be some words of wisdom and advice, maybe to your younger self and to anyone in that position?
I'd say the biggest thing is, like, enjoyment. Like, for me, growing up as a kid playing sport, that's all I did was enjoy playing with my friends. Like, I never took it really too seriously. I just had fun with it, and I think that's the biggest thing with growing up as a kid and playing sport. Like, you don't need to get bogged down in the details of it. Like, just go and try any sport. Like, whether you're good at it, whether you're not good at it, if you enjoy it, stick with it and have fun. Like, who's to say you don't know where that's going to take you? Like, I wasn't amazing at rugby when I was 8, and I knew I was going to be a professional rugby player. I just loved playing the game with my friends, and I'd give so much now to go back to when I was 10, 11, 12 and play with my friends at school, non-competitively, not getting paid for it, because I enjoyed doing it, and those are the best memories I have of growing up with my mates. So that's the biggest thing I'd say, is enjoy what you're doing. Like, it's the same with you guys with your work. Like, if you didn't enjoy this, you wouldn't want to do it. And it's the same with my rugby. Like, I'd never want rugby to be a job for me. I want it to be something that I love doing. And so far it has been in my career. But for me, the biggest advice I'd say is just enjoy it. Enjoy playing rugby, enjoy playing football, cricket, whatever sport it is, swimming, hockey, netball, whatever. Just enjoy it, because those moments when it gets to adult life, sometimes it isn't as easy as that. So while you can as a kid, have some fun.
Love that. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Came down, travelled far for us. We've been trying to do it for a long time as well.
I have actually. I've been a bit flaky, to be fair, I can't lie.
You are.
But
He's
I
gone
got
big
here-
time on us now.
I got here eventually. I literally went from training this morning, had to drop a car off at MOT, and then go back home, and then come here, and then go back home. But it was all worth it.
Yeah.
I'd do anything for you, you know.
Come on. Nah, for real though, I really appreciate you,
Appreciate
bro.
it, bro.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate you. And we appreciate all of you guys at home listening, watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Turn the bell notification on so you get notified every time we release a podcast. I'm gonna see you till next week. I was waiting for you. I could see the fucking teeth from over there.
Speed of that thing.